I'm here with actor Dominick LaRuffa, who I've interviewed before, but
Yes, we have.
quite a pleasure to do it a second time.
Yeah, nice to see you again. Thanks for having me.
So for those who have not seen the first interview, and really shame on you that you haven't, you can watch it below. I will have it linked below, but talk a little bit about when you first decided that you wanted to pursue acting as a full-time career.
One, I would like to see the interview that
I know.
however long ago that was. I'd like to see.
Well, I'm going to see if your answers change at all.
Yeah, that version of me who was aimlessly happy.
Yeah.
What the career has actually done to me since then. But starting out acting wise, I mean that was junior high school, and I really never looked back.
Mm-hmm.
I spent a lot of time leaning into my adult years trying not to be an actor. All I wanted to do was not do this with my life.
Yeah.
And I spent a lot of time trying to do other things, other things I did decently with, other things I did well enough to maybe pursue them.
Yeah.
But I was just miserable all the time whenever I wasn't performing or surrounded by the thing that I really wanted to do. And when I left for college, I left as on a pre-law track, poli-sci, want to do international relations, something like that. Anything that would give me a real career.
Yeah.
And about a year into that, that was up in Boston. I grew up here in the city, so I thought it was important to leave, your hometown. After about a year into that, 18-year-old me had never really experienced that level of professional loss before, and it was an odd thing to be experiencing at that point in my life, but I really knew then and there that this is what I wanted to do, this is what I had to do regardless of what the struggles were going to be.
Yeah.
I auditioned for all the major programs that back here home, in the city, got into namely what ended up being at Pace University, where I got my BFA in acting, and this was 2008 when I graduated in 2011, and I legitimately have never looked back.
When you were trying to plan your trajectory, and I know this is kind of hard as an actor to do because it's very up and down of where you're going to land, were you thinking of theater since you're from New York? Did you really want to focus on film and television? Did you not care?
I've always loved film.
Mm-hmm.
Coming up in the era, the golden age of TV that we live in, it's hard not to want to see yourself do that type of work. But for me, it was the theater show. There was that's all I ever wanted to do. I didn't care if I was ever on a film set or a TV set a day in my life. But then growing up, being poor isn't great.
No.
Why not pursue the other mediums, learn the other mediums? And then over the last decade or so, I've really come to love almost all of them equally. And it's a very different approach to the work. On an independent film set, on a studio film set, when you're doing television, when you're doing web series, when you're doing theater, you kind of get to feel like a little bit of a different actor each time you do it and use new muscles. So I've learned to love every aspect of something that lets me perform that day.
Has that journey been made easier because now there's such a big array of things to do? Like you mentioned, the web series. There's so many streaming platforms now and shows that film here.
It's an interesting question. I could probably argue both sides of it, but for me starting out, I actually think it was a little bit of a detriment because there's so many ways to pigeonhole you now.
Right.
No, you're just a TV actor. No, you're just an indie, film guy. You do web series. Okay, maybe that's all you're gonna do.
Right.
Fortunately, over the last couple of years, that seemed to have dissipated for me a bit, where I get to work in each medium. But yeah, initially I was like, oh no, you would think all the opportunity exposes you to be the best possible version of yourself that you want to be in each medium. But I initially found out, no, people just wanted you to pick a lane and stay in it.
Right.
And frankly, some mindsets are still like that.
Which is ridiculous. There's movie stars doing websites. There's so much more out there, and everybody wants new content constantly. So there's way more opportunity, and
absolutely.
People shouldn't be looking down.
And the biggest stars of today, at least over the last 4 or 5 or 6 years, all want an HBO show now. They all want to lead, in a Showtime show. They all want to be, they all want their Netflix original. 10 years ago, that would have been ludicrous for an agent to think that their movie star wants to go do cable television.
Right.
And now think of a name. Meryl Streep is doing television again.
Right. Exactly.
It's an incredible thing.
I think that stuff should all be out the window by now, but I guess there's still people who are a little old school in their way of thinking. What was the first professional project that you wrote?
Professional Meaning, let's say got me my SAG card.
Yeah.
So let's call that professional. Was a movie called Once Upon a Time in Brooklyn. It was an independent feature that had a great cast considering it was an indie. Armand Assante played my dad. Kathy Moriarty played my mom. So, these Academy Award nominees. You know, and then me. But this was really in probably the tail end of like the late 90s and early 2000 independent film craze. So there were, we were like, oh, I got an indie. There wasn't a sense of, oh, this isn't something worth doing anymore. It was like, oh, these indies are becoming, Academy Award nominated films. Now, Once Upon a Time in Brooklyn was not an Academy Award nominated film, but I got to work with some terrific talent, talent I respected and admired my whole life. And actually, this story was funny to me 10 years ago, and it's almost 10 years ago now when I shot this.
Wow.
And it's still funny to me today. So we were talking about the difference of approaching and acting, right? We want to do theater or film or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
So my first day on set is a dinner scene with Armand and Kathy. And the director comes out and he introduces, like each hierarchy star, going higher and higher and higher, to all of us doing this dinner scene. And obviously Armand's the last one, to come out. And everyone's like, oh, this is Armand Assante, blah, blah, blah. And he was such a sweetheart. He was so nice. He made me feel so comfortable right away. And we're getting ready to do the first take. And the director hands him his sides, like little sides. And he's, he's reading them under the table. And I was like, does he not know his lines? I was like, what's going on? So I start talking to him about the scene, and he says to me, he's like, hold on, I gotta read the scene, And I was like, okay, maybe he's just like really, really trying to get what the world is going on and stuff like that. He had never read the line a day before he sat down.
Wow.
In that scene. Yeah. And basically what I realized was, film acting is very different from theater, where you come in off book your first day of rehearsal. That's a lot of the time. He had not seen the scene before he sat down 5 minutes before.
And there's no cut.
To shoot it, no. And initially my response, I was like, this is Academy Award winner Armand Assante. Like, why do you not know it? And then I'm looking around the room and all the pros are looking at their sides. Everyone had taken their sides from the director, was going over the scene. I was the only schnook that came in off book. Where it was like I knew everyone's lines in the scene. Like I knew the whole script.
You're feeding them lines through your earpiece.
Yeah. And everybody else, and I'm just like, okay, it's my first scene. And everybody else is so calm, so whatever. And they're just like, yeah, I got this little speech. There's actually food on the table because we're doing a couple of rehearsal takes for dinner. So they're just like having a bite, reading their lines, and I'm freaking out. Like, how does everyone not know their stuff? What is this going to, if this was a play, everyone would be fired.
Right.
And then everyone was better in the scene than me. Like, Armand and Kathy, like, blew the roof off the place in that scene. And they had just got their scene, got their lines 10 minutes before. I was like, oh, there is a different style. There is a different approach.
Was that something you were able to adapt to? Or going forward, did you also bring that kind of...
Yeah, absolutely, because there is a sense of preparedness and professionalism that they still brought to the table with their lifetime of experience, but they also probably knew, hey, this scene we only have 3 lines each. I don't need to stress the words so much. I need to bring my character to the table. And they were got it in one take. They were so fully vested in who their character was going to be, and that scene was the beginning of the production for the whole thing. And I was spending so much time, again, theater school stuff, trying to figure out my process and my moment before, and all the, not all like the 101 rudimentary stuff that you learn, which, don't get me wrong, is important.
Yeah.
But that was my very first taste, and I actually shot that movie while I was still in college, of you bring all the training to the table, and then you forget about it, and you go do the scene.
Yeah.
And all these pros were doing that, and it was blowing my mind.
Yeah.
And now that's very much how I approach particularly film and TV stuff, especially with television. I mean, you'll maybe get 2 days if you're lucky, for an appointment. Sometimes it's the night before, and here you got 10 pages of sides for a guest star. You get 12 hours notice. You can't get too bogged down in the memorization of it and being word perfect. You got to build the world. You got to come in and be the character that the director, the CD, the producer have in mind, before you even enter the room.
How long did it take you to adjust to that way of preparing?
I still adjust to it, I think, especially when you're someone who goes back and forth between the mediums. Like, if I'm lucky and let's say I have 3 auditions in 1 week, it's very likely one of them will be for a play, one will be for television, one will be for a film, and you kind of approach them a little bit differently.
Yeah. Now, my running gag with actors, especially New York actors, you have to do a Law and Order and you have to do a horror film. So
Yeah.
have you done a horror film and
Yeah,
been slaughtered?
yeah,
And have you done
yeah.
Law and Order?
Actually, my first like real big horror feature. It's called Blue Call, and it'll come out later, early in 2020.
You just did your first horror film?
I did it a year and a half ago, but that's
But still,
that's after
you've
life.
been in the business a long time to just be doing a horror film.
Yeah, well, I never cared to do it. I never wanted to do it. I've always enjoyed the medium. I've always respected it. But like you say, like that first thing you got to get out of your way. I didn't want to be so kitschy with the type of work I was doing. Similarly to why I didn't want to just do the Brooklyn gangster stuff because, that's how I grew up, and I didn't want that to be my professional life.
Right.
But this one horror film that a very close friend of mine was producing, he put together an all-star cast for such a low horror budget. But that's the thing about horror, is that there are low budget things.
Right.
It's actually a really good acting story. So it was the first time I was ever flown to LA to go do something, and I felt very fancy about myself. Just one good scene, but one scene to do in this thing.
That doesn't sound very promising.
Right? It didn't sound promising on the onset. So I go out there and I do this one scene. I crush it. Just saying, I crushed it.
Because you were literally crushed to death.
Yes. And the lead I was working with, she's Katie Leclerc. She had just come off of 5 seasons of being in the lead on Switched Up Earth on ABC.
I know what you're talking about, yes.
So like a sweetheart of a person, but she was in like the most pro mind body setting, because she had just come off of doing this every day for 5 years as the lead. So she was a sweetheart to work with, and so seamless to do scene work with. But anyway, I do my one scene. I'm all excited. I was in LA for 48 hours and then was going back. So my buddy, who's one of the producers, later that night, like as I'm packing up the hotel to leave, I get a knock on the door, and it's my friend of a long time, so it's, whatever, come on in. He was like, so I gotta tell you, we can't use your stuff from today. Like we're gonna have to cut it. And I was just devastated, because this was my friend. It was a real, it was a thing for me. But then he was like, but listen, why? He was like, because we just fired one of the leads, and we need you to step up and play this role.
That's hysterical.
And we're gonna reshoot everything that he shot this past week tomorrow with you, plus one more scene that he had to go. So I did 6 scenes over 13 pages in a 15-hour period, and that is where like the theater training comes in.
Yeah.
Because even the most low budget film sets don't do 15-page dates.
Right.
But I had to get back to New York whenever it was. They were very unhappy with the actor that was playing that role. Again, just like squandering opportunity. I'll never understand why people act that way.
Yeah, it's so stupid.
But it was my theater background that taught me how to learn 15 pages overnight, and then go in and where we're maybe getting 3 takes each scene.
And on a horror film, that's not that much, because you have to get it just right.
Yeah, exactly.
Without spoiling anything, obviously.
So that was probably something I won't forget for a long time, because that's when I got to use all the tools I thought were not relevant to this approach, to this medium, and you realize like everything you do is relevant. Everything you learn, every tool you have in the kit will actually matters. Like there's no harm that comes from doing all the little things all the time, because eventually maybe you'll get your chance to use it, and then like I did.
I mean, I would have sat my friend down and been like, I should have been in this part all along.
Oh yeah, we went back and forth on it for a while. I actually just maybe 2 weeks ago saw my copy from it, and this was something we shot 2 years. I shot this before Irishman, but that's the thing about horror films, right? Like little independent stuff, it takes a long time.
Yeah.
And I saw the copy from it, and it's actually kind of good.
Good.
Yeah, it's
looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, it's actually pretty good. So I look forward to people seeing it.
Yeah, we don't want you to get killed in it, but at least now maybe you'll last a little longer since you had more pages.
Yes.
We'll say that anyway. Either that, or you could be chained to a table and it's just a longer death scene. But
yeah, there's actually a lot of that going on. So
a lot of chains.
Yeah, I look forward to you seeing it.
Yeah. So, how do you handle things like that? You mentioned that your theater background really helped you with that, but you also have to have personality to be able to change on a dime. Your whole thought process was, I'm going to be this guy. Now I got to be somebody else in this story, and now I also may feel a responsibility to the lead, who is now bouncing off another guy who she already filmed all her stuff with.
Yeah, I'd say that's where training meets opportunity, and you hope they equal each other out, right? You know, like you don't want to be so heady that you can't do the good work,
Right.
and you don't want to squander an opportunity by being too precious about your process.
Yeah.
You know, and unfortunately, I think there's a lot of people that get caught in either one of those traps, and maybe it was just the speed of it all that didn't have time to think too much about it. But I'd like to think that I was able to blend both of those thought processes together, and and do a decent job.
Without naming a specific project by name, what was one of the most challenging, whether it was film, television, theater, projects to be involved in where you didn't think you would make it to the end, or that you didn't want to make it to the end?
Interesting question. Good question, Brian. I would say struggling to get to the end is probably the project that has brought me the most personal fulfillment. Is a short film called Compliance,
Okay.
which is the first time I wore actor and producer hat. And I set out to make this movie with my friends, with my best friends at each level. You know, my best friends who wrote it, my good friend who directed it, my friend who I starred opposite in it. And the project was, we were all kind of in a weird place in our life and careers, and we set out to make it just to make something for us. If no one ever saw it, that was fine. You know, we didn't want to even treat it as a proof of concept for a feature or anything like that. We just wanted to make a good little short film. Something comes of it, great, but that wasn't the point. And we just wanted to be there as friends. That turned into a lot of conflict.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. Did it cement the friendship, or did it actually?
It made, by the end, it made all the friendships stronger across the board. But there was a very testy period there, because it wasn't just, oh, that guy who's also on the crew is my friend. It was everyone who was friends working together. For the most part, working in positions that they all hadn't worked in before together. So we went from being the easiest, most fun, most collaborative, to when it was actually coming to production time, to just like a lot of headbutting, and that's hard when everyone's friends. And especially with me, the first time I was wearing lead actor and lead producer hats, so I was trying to keep the peace between everyone while still trying to do two pretty tough jobs, simultaneously.
Right.
So there was a couple of days there where it was just like, oh, this was the opposite. This is the exact opposite of what we wanted.
Right.
But by the end, we were all kind of grateful that it happened, because we made something great.
That's awesome.
And then when we all, it was almost 2 years ago, when we look back on and talk about this time, it's all pretty funny to us now. But there was when you're in it, when you're so deep in it, it's hard to see what the end product is going to look like.
And now you did bring up producing, and I just want to really briefly touch on it. One of the current shows that you're producing is Betrayal on Broadway.
Yeah.
Which runs until
December 8th.
December 8th, yeah.
December 8th.
Got a very big all-star cast, which is
fantastic. It's great. I mean, it's Broadway. It's 8 shows a week. It stars Tom Hiddleston, who's Loki in the Thor and Avengers movies, Charlie Cox, who's Daredevil and Marvel's Daredevil, Zawe Ashton, and Eddie Arnold. And the more impressive thing to me than their credits is how they are as people. Like, the few occasions where we've actually got to have some intimacy with each other, like they're just such a quality group of humans. And I think that's translating and why the show is doing so well.
As well, it's a fantastic show. I did have the opportunity to see it, which is great.
Thank you for saying so. And so I know this is a little passé to say, but I was never Harold Pinter's biggest fan. And I know, like, as a life in theater, you're not supposed to say that. But there was a lot of his stuff that I never really identified with. And then Betrayal of his plays was always my favorite. But even still, it wasn't like, oh, I have to do this. But then seeing what they were going to do with the production in London, because it was a London transfer to New York, which is usually not my favorite thing to be a part of either. I like doing like new American original stuff, but I had a gut feeling this was not just going to be the best version of Betrayal. This was going to be the best version of Pinter's work on Broadway, just period. And I know it's my show, so I'm a little jaded saying it, but a little biased saying it rather. But it's such an excellent product, and it's something I'm so fortunate and proud of to be a part of. Jamie Lloyd's the director, and his approach to material that's been done and been done and been done, seeing it brand new for the first time. I think he's one of the more gifted and sophisticated directors working in theater today, because I had seen basically every version of Betrayal done in the last 15 years. And it's like seeing it for the first time with this production.
And it's interesting because there's a lot of back and forth about casting. Well, I don't know that it's so much a thing now, but it used to be when you would stunt cast a show, it would be like, oh, why aren't you using theater actors? Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
These people came with a pretty huge following.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But they really deliver. It's not just, oh, I want to go see Loki on stage, or I want to go see Daredevil on stage. Like,
they are.
If you're going to see that, then
they're
you're not
theater
going,
actors who happen to make,
100%.
who happen to become recognizable and famous in other mediums, but they are theater actors through and through. And it's something I could talk about ad nauseum of now understanding the producing economic model of what makes Broadway so challenging, of why you need a quote unquote star often in order for the show to stay open. People think of it as just, producers are wealthy. For the most part, they're not. They're raising it from equity investors. And that cast, whatever it is, whether it's a small play or a big musical, they sign up for a job that any week they could lose it. So you do have to do certain things to cement, or at least try to cement, staying open.
Right.
So stunt casting often falls under that. But for me, a lot of stunt casting is usually not the right actor for the job.
Right.
And that's just not the case. If we're particularly talking stars right now with Tom and Charlie, they're theater actors who happen to be famous. They're so good in the show. They're so good. And they're such nice, good people. And if you were, even just a fan at the stage door, get the same level of treatment as they give to a more famous, sophisticated person.
And I can
backstage, like they're just they're good guys. They do a good job in the show, and I think they bring a new life to a 40-year-old piece.
Agree.
That's pretty remarkable.
I just to bring up the stage door, just briefly, I did stage door after I saw the production, and I was actually able to talk to both Tom and Charlie because I spoke to them like human beings, not, oh my God, sign that. Like, I spoke with Tom for a good 3 to 4 minutes, which at that stage door is a
his mom.
huge...
Yeah,
he
kudos
stood
to
there
him,
and just talked to me for that amount of time about a bunch of different things, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
And that was a great experience to have.
Yeah, I think that's kind of similar to the experience I had when I was doing my very, very, very first show with All the Way with Bryan Cranston. And this was, at that time, the final 8 episodes of Breaking Bad were ending, so he was one of the more famous actors on Earth at that moment. Kind of similar to Tom coming off, Endgame, one of the more, top 10 stars on the planet going into a Broadway play. You could almost justify, and I say almost because I mean almost, I don't believe in being rude for any particular reason, but you could almost justify why there would be more reserve, maybe bordering on rude or cruel, and, kind saying aloof, but there's a lot of actors who haven't seen the type of success to say like Tom or Brian, has, but both of those guys, Charlie too, act like it's their first job. Yeah. Like just their level of enthusiasm, both for the work and for the kindness to strangers. It's something that I will remember. I don't want to say it's taught me, but it's definitely reaffirmed for me that there's no excuse for the rest of us to be unkind. Right. If guys like that can treat the people around them with such respect and decorum, and civility, and hey, you're a person, I'm a person, and thanks for coming to the show. Absolutely. It's a really nice thing. And back to you, because you are the focus. Well, okay, so actually I could tie in Betrayal for a second. One of the worst days of my professional life was when Netflix announced all the cancellations of Daredevil and Punisher, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones, all those shows. Because primarily Daredevil and Punisher, I had over 20 appointments for. And for every type of role, for co-stars, guest stars, recurring guest stars, roles that were big enough to certainly get bumped up to a series reg if it got into another season, and from roles that big to one-line co-stars. I had been in for Daredevil and Punisher combined 21 or 22 times. Like, that's a lot of auditions. Yeah. It's a lot of appointments, and almost all of them I got either called back or pinned for or producer tested for. This is at a Julie Sherbert's casting office. And it kind of got to the point where, when I met her, I was so nervous because she was Julie Sherbert casting, these big Marvel shows. And by the end, it was just like, hey, Dom, it's going to happen at some point. And then when those shows got canceled, it was just... I put in 2 years of effort into any one of those roles could have changed my life either for a week or for a month or for a year or maybe for longer, depending on the role that I booked. I was in for some real stuff, and I happen to also be a giant fan of the material and of that world, but strictly speaking professionally, it could have done wonders for me. Booking either one of those gigs, and then everything got canceled, and I was devastated. It was like, all the work I put into for these producers, for the production houses, that I'm, have to start at square one again.
Right.
And then got the offer to produce on Betrayal that happens to star these two Marvel juggernauts.
Yeah, which is crazy.
And it's
almost like kind of fate.
Yeah. It was just, like there's not a way I can't try to work on this.
Absolutely.
Like it's, I don't know how much I believe in fate, but that definitely felt fated. That, hey, this one thing for your acting career really went sideways unexpectedly, but maybe now we could tie them into the other side of your life a bit.
Yeah. Now I know we're connected mutually on Facebook as friends, and I don't know how open you are in quote the real world, Facebook life, but you're very candid about the struggles that you go through as a working actor and trying to be a working actor, and you hustle like no one's business.
Thank you.
And you put in a lot of hours at a lot of jobs that people may not want to do because they want to focus on the acting. And I'm not saying that as a detriment, like you don't care about the acting. Like you're hauling ass to make your dream come true as an actor. Like what goes through your head in the morning when you're getting up and you're saying, I don't really want to do this today, but I have to. I got to focus on my goal, my dream, my this.
That's a poignant question. And thank you for the kindness in saying about my level of candidness. I don't know if I am actually affecting anybody else or not with my level of candor, but I will occasionally get messages from people I know and people who are complete strangers to me thanking me for it. So I do think it's worth continuing to do because we're all now swarmed in this era of where we think the only level of light that can be shined on your life is in the spotlight, and that's just not true. There's a lot of work that gets done in the dark. There's a lot of work that gets done on the sidelines.
Right.
There is other light besides limelight, and
absolutely.
And social media doesn't really show that. Doesn't really give people a chance to feel heard and seen and justified in their actions each day. And I know a lot of people who I'm like real life friends with, or just a following friend with, that struggle or work just as hard as I do. But if you would look at their social media, you would think they're on a red carpet every day and like always in Ibiza.
Right.
Like there's not. And
you mean they're not? You mean it's fake?
And it's just. This is hard, and so now this is kind of not relevant for people like who have a trust fund, but everybody else, everybody else who's trying to do this. This is hard enough, without the added expectation and pressure of what your world and your life is supposed to look like to the rest of the world. So I genuinely don't think there's anything wrong or anything but feeling pride in the dignity of hard work. Whether that means you're working in clubs, working in bars, working in restaurants, working in marketing firms, working whatever, working in advertising, teaching, doing whatever it is that you have to do in order to do the thing that you really want to be doing. And also, having said that, at least it's important to me that if I am doing something that's not acting that day, or it's not producing that day, or it's not creating or storytelling in some way, I still try to give 101% to it. I still try to treat it with respect, and take some pride in my work.
Right.
So now I'm a little bit more picky about the other stuff I'll do outside of the performing world, so that I can feel pride in what I'm doing. And I would like other young actors or young performers or writers, dancers, choreographers, whatever it is, the thing that you want to be doing all the time. If you have to be doing something else, doesn't mean you shouldn't give it your all also.
Yeah.
Because at least that's been my experience, that living the rest of life makes you a better performer. Working whatever other job that is, or traveling, or a family love, or family strife, or whatever it is, the other things that are going on outside of what you're doing on camera or on stage will always inform you doing your best possible work.
Yeah. Well, it's nice to see somebody being real on their social media.
Well, thanks for saying
just,
so.
Because it's not all waking up, going to a premiere, waking up, I'm working with Johnny Depp today on set, or I'm working with this person or that person. Like, there are days you're not working with anybody, and you still got to keep pushing forward to put money in the bank to keep fulfilling your
that
dream.
Or just, there's just days where there's quote unquote nothing to do besides going out and trying to figure out how to get to the end of that day.
Right.
And there are a lot of people that live that way in this business. And I consider myself a working actor at this point, a working producer, a working artist.
Absolutely.
More than half of my income comes from the art in my life, and I'm very proud of that. But that doesn't mean I have to feel shame from the other side of my life.
Right.
You know, and maybe that's come with age, because I did for a long time. I did feel like I had to hide the other stuff for, that if I wanted to, I could purport myself to be at something fancy all the time. I'm often invited to openings. I'm at premieres. I do work a decent amount. I am on set regularly. But if I'm on set as a one-line co-star, I'm not going to pretend I'm the lead of the show.
Right.
Like I just
Johnny Wahlberg, because I'm going to be like,
look at me with so and so.
And then the episode airs, and you're like the dead body under the sheet.
I just won't do it. I'd rather feel grateful for getting the opportunity to have that line with that person, and then maybe try to form a relationship with the person off camera, as opposed to pretending, that I'm the new, I'm the lead of this pilot. Right. And it's like, no, like you didn't have lines.
You're like the third whore from the left in the lineup.
Yeah. What are you talking? Like, what are you doing? I don't think it serves the community to pretend. Now there is something to be said about faking it till you make it, to putting yourself out there, to saying I'm a professional and I am working. All those things are true. So I don't want to talk outside of both sides of my mouth. All those things are true, but
you got to balance it.
Yeah, but I don't know if my limited social media range, because I also hate social media, but I don't know if my limited reach on social media will help influence other people to be a little bit more real, be a little bit more okay with the fact that they live in the real world. Right. And the real world is often unfair and unkind. But then you get these moments, if you're really hustling, like what you say, what you say about a lot of us, when you're really hustling and you do get that big job and you do get to go to the premiere and you do get to be with all the fancy people and you do get to see what your life could look like, then yes, celebrate that, post about it, I just don't know why you have to feel shame and not talking about all the other stuff.
Right. Now, speaking of, you have a new film coming out, or did it come out, The Irishman?
Irishman, no, it comes out everywhere November 1st.
November 1st, so we're kind of on the eve of it.
Yeah, in theaters November 1st, Netflix November 27th. It is a Netflix original film.
That's not too shabby.
Yeah, it's pretty great. That was my
even though they canceled Daredevil and Punisher.
Again, one of those wrapping around things. I still get to be, a Netflix actor, get to work for Netflix. The Irishman, Scorsese film. It stars Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, Harvey Keitel, Bobby Cannavale, Ray Romano, Anna Paquin. I mean, the cast is just
so basically it's
crazy. Even the people with just a handful of scenes, we're all leads on their own shows. Like the cast list is just impressive all the way down. Yeah. So getting to be this small supporting part of it is something I won't forget for the rest of my life. It was my first studio contract ever. My first day of shooting was also the first day of principal photography for the film. So this was because it was important to me. I remember it was September 18th, 2017, and my first scene, my first day was the first day of shooting a movie that shot until February. So there were 6 months of shooting that happened after my character wrapped. Right. So I was fully convinced I was not going to make the final product. I mean, meaning Scorsese, shot at least a 5-hour movie at minimum, and now it's the short run time of 3.5 hours. So
send me a clip of your part.
a little quick thing. So I have friends, having seen it, and other friends who've seen various screenings of it. I have friends who shot for 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks that didn't make it in, or like half of their face made it in for a sec, whatever it is, and that has nothing to do with the quality of anyone's work or whatever. Right. That's just what happens in this business.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I would spend the last 2 years fully preparing myself to just be grateful for the opportunity that I had, those great working days. Marty, because he said I can call him, we said he could be called Marty, told me I did a good job at the end of my first day as he was walking back to his car, and I was like, I can hold on to that for the rest of my life.
Absolutely, because it doesn't change regardless of how many minutes you're in.
Yeah, it was a great job. It was a great effort. It helped my the soul of my career. It helped my household. It helped. That was something I will always have. So the last thing in the world I expected was to make it into the trailer. So when the trailer, I didn't even know that the trailer was dropping that day. I woke up to like 147 text messages about the trailer.
And then you're like, shit, what's going on?
Yeah. And then being in it. And then now actually seeing the film and seeing that, like, I have this one pretty big scene and I have really nice coverage in it. And you could actually, see me, doing the thing that I want to do for the rest of my life. And it happens to be in this Scorsese epic that very likely might be a Best Picture nominee. Like it's something I'll be grateful for forever.
Yeah. and sometimes it just takes that one shot. But yet they'll release that trailer, you'll get all this buzz, and it'll be like, oh, he came here overnight, and look at the success story. And it's like, nah, let's be real for a minute. Let me tell you about my success story that I've been doing this for over 10 years.
Yeah, and that's an interesting part about the business too. Like however many indies I've done, or smaller projects, or even smaller plays for that regard, you kind of quickly see who your friends and who your real supporters are, who come to all the things that aren't like the Irishman,
right.
you know. And then I'm in this trailer for 2 seconds where I've done really good work as leads in other projects that no one cared to comment on, but you're in this, you know, worldwide release trailer for 2, and everyone's like, oh, do you remember when we met at so and so? And
that's a tricky thing to have to deal with too as an actor, because there's a lot of people that want to be part of the entourage, part of the hangers on, part of the this, part of that. How do you navigate that world of, I have to be kind and nice to everyone, but at the same time, I know you're full of shit. You just are latching on to me because you think it's going to lead somewhere.
Like I said, there's never a reason to be rude to people like that. Right. But I, regardless of professional things, I often feel like the richest man in the room because of my personal life. I have wonderful friends. I have an incredibly supportive and understanding wife, and you're lucky in life to have one good friend.
Right.
But our best friend circle, you know, there's maybe a dozen of us that are inseparable, that have been that way for over 10 years now. People that were in my life when I was 10 that have become friends with people in my life just from 2 years ago, and now they're all friends. And so I know I'm very fortunate at this point in my life to know what friendship really means, to have been a part of a group that have gone through very high highs and very low lows, and always be there for each other. So that's kind of my marker now. Is not everyone doesn't have to be best friends all the time. You could, you know, you can be convivial, you could be, you know, colleagues, you could be work associates, and still have a mutual respect and understanding and friendship and things of that sort. But that person who comes out of nowhere, who's trying to pretend or trying to report themselves to be someone who's been, you know, your ally, that's okay to be like, no, you're in a certain box. Don't have to be mean about it.
No, you just.
But no, like when I was down and broke and sad and worrying about getting evicted, where were you? You know, but now you want comps to premiere night.
Yeah, and that's a very weird thing that probably most people really don't have to deal with in there. Well, I guess in a way, like if you end up being a CEO of a company, you're gonna have people like, oh, remember when I typed you a letter when we were in, you know what I mean, like that kind of thing. But I feel like it's more rampant, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially now with the easily connected world we live in of social media, that anyone could just DM someone, and like there's no level of like reservation or respect, or like everyone's so overly familiar with each other. And I say this as somebody who wants to be nice to everyone. But if we've never met before, you don't DM me saying, yo, Dominic, can I get a comp to, you know.
People actually do that?
Oh, yeah. You can only imagine what like real celebrities go through. And so I will get why some become more guarded. But granted, those people have teams of people around them to layer out. You know, here it's just Dom.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty shocking that somebody, I don't know why I'm shocked by that, but like the fact that somebody's...
If after each Broadway opening or a film, if I post about something good happening in my life, theatrically, you know, me, whether it's a film or television or Broadway or off Broadway, whatever it is, I could almost guarantee I will get like somewhere between 10 and 50 private messages of people asking for things, and asking things of me, and asking things from me.
And see, that's shitty, because
and it's
that
never
really
people I know.
Right. Well, that also makes you think, wow, I'm only good enough now because I'm doing this, that, and the other thing? What about when I was hauling my ass to go do a bartending shift or go do a this shift?
I'd rather get messages from strangers, me posting about, hey, I'm at the bar tonight, hey, I'd love to come see you and support and have a drink and get to know you, or whatever it is. Or even just you're a perfect stranger and you want to get to know me as an actor. Every Friday and Saturday night, I put on my bartending pants and I go, come and introduce yourself there. You know, and come have a drink, come have dinner. You know,
not that kind of bar, right?
So it's just, you know, it makes me wonder about you know what you know certain echelons of people have to go through. But the other side of that is, and again, not to talk out of both sides of my mouth, you have to put yourself out there. So I do get being the underling, you know, being the one who's trying to be a part of something else, saying, hey, I really respect your work. I really respect your job. I've been following you for a long time. You know, I would love to learn more. I would love to get to know more. Like, that's a perfectly appropriate way to handle it. You know, hey, I'm somebody who also is multi-hyphenate. I'm an actor, writer. I'm an actor, dancer. I'm an actor, writer, dancer, producer, director.
Singer slash, yeah.
You know, I would love to learn about how to balance those worlds. You know, whenever I get those messages, I'm like, you know, hell yeah, let's grab a drink and talk about it, stranger.
Yeah.
You know, but that people are like, you know, who will message me and then 10 minutes later, ooh, guess you're too busy for me. You stranger? Like,
I think there's a difference of them asking for you to do something for them in that respect of, you've been successful in this area, I would love to pick your brain about it, than, oh, Dom, you're producing Betrayal, I really love Tom Hiddleston, how about we go backstage?
Yeah.
And like, there's a genuine connection that this person wants to make with you,
absolutely,
talking about your craft and whatever they want, other than, I just want to meet Tom Hiddleston and you're my middleman.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where the best stuff happens, because it's not about what you can do for one another, at least in my mind. You know, it's, you know, we're all in this together, you know, and if you approach it that way, I'm always going to recognize myself in somebody else, you know. So if you're approaching me the way I would approach, let's say, the next level up, I'm never going to say no or look down, or even if, you know, it means I sleep one less hour that day so that we can go get a drink and talk about whatever it is you want to do.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it 10 out of 10 times if you're nice.
Right. If you're an asshole, forget it.
Yeah.
Don't bother me.
No.
Make sure you write all these names down to thank the Academy Award. That's what you should write back. I'll make sure I mention my Oscar speech.
I'll make sure I bring you out. Thanks.
It's a difficult business, and it's, you know, trying to figure out who your real friends are, which I don't think you have that problem, obviously. It doesn't seem like it's something you need to concern yourself with, because you already have the good head on your shoulders. And I feel like if you did blow up and become the next big thing, you wouldn't be one of those people that was like, oh, forget my friends in New York who aren't doing anything, or I'm going to go do coke and like get drunk every night and just be a party. Like, I just feel like
I'm a bartender. We're drunk every night anyway.
That's right. Yeah, you're already used to that.
Yeah, no.
There's going to be no scandals where it comes with you. You can handle your liquor.
No.
Dominick, thank you so much for taking the time to meet up with me. This has been fantastic.
Oh, thank you. It was a pleasure.
I would love to talk to you even at greater length about other things, and maybe make this a little bit of a series with you. So
sign me up. Let's do it, man.
All right, sounds good. I didn't say that off the bat because I was like, let me feel him out. But now that he wants to help people.
No, it's great. Thanks for having me.
No, really. Thank you so much for your time. I very much appreciate it.